Hey everyone, welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. Brian and I have each grown physical therapy businesses to 2 million plus in annual revenue. We're looking to get good advice to PTs trying to grow their practices. Enjoy. To the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell, and with me as always is Dr. Brian Wolf, and together we are Physiogrowth. Physiogrowth is a company that helps entrepreneurs in the PT and healthcare space build their companies. I've worked on the bigger scaling side, right? And Brian's started his company from the back of his car all the way up to now. He's got 5 clinics doing $2 million in revenue. So we got you. We know we've seen it. So check out the show notes for our mentorship group. And today we are going to be talking about marketing. We talk about marketing a lot on this channel. But what we really want to look at is when should I outsource marketing, right? And when should I stop going to these networking groups? And when should I maybe, either hire somebody to do that for me? Or when should I start looking to pay like a pay-per-click person? When is there, these people have businesses for a reason. They must help people. It's not like, they're not losing clients left and right. So I posed this question to Brian of, at what point as somebody grows their business, either me as a cash-based clinic or if they have an insurance-based clinic, do you really want to look to outsource that marketing so you can spend more time on other things? So that's what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, I think when as soon as Owen said this to me, I think a lot of it is the answer to this is when you're prepared to lose business, right?
So when you're prepared, so when you think you could stomach a little bit less business.
100%. Because the reality of it is because the reality is, again, we come back to the old adage is no one will love your business more than you will. So the reality is as soon as you hire employees, it is an unrealistic expectation to believe that people work that hard for you, right? And do the things that you want to do. Now, will you find A+ employees and things like that can do the things you want to do at the high levels and eventually be amazing at marketing and things like that? Yeah, maybe there's those diamonds in the rough, but I promise you they charge more than you think you can if you're a solopreneur. So in essence, what you're actually looking to do when you're hiring those people is learning how to replace them, learning from them. Think of it as continuing education, right? So if I'm trying to learn from those people, there are a lot of people that are you're going to spend a lot of money just to get them to do something for you that you can do. So the answer is a lot of times, like I'll give you a great example. We're trying to end our relationship with one of our other marketing companies that we use as like an outsource thing. We do a lot of the marketing. We've already taken over because their marketing stuff wasn't that good, but we try to take over some of their other stuff. And now they just ghosted us for 5 days. That's all they've done. So the reality is when you can stomach somebody not talking to you for 7 days about your business and how it's going, then it makes sense. Then go ahead, do it. But be prepared. Like be prepared for things to suck a little bit. Like that's the reality of the situation.
Sounds like your answer to this is never outsource marketing.
No. Oh, great. All right. So here's a great piece. Okay. So did you hear what Owen said? That's because Owen is in the point where he's not prepared to stomach losing business. That's why you said that. The reality is for me is I know I have to let go of some stuff as we're scaling and growing. So I'm okay with letting go of some. Now, do I let go of marketing? No, because I love marketing and I love the idea of building and trying to grow and trying to experiment and trying to attract more people to us. I think that's a huge piece of what we do as a company, and I do it for our company. That being said, are there other things that I outsource? Absolutely. Are there other things that I let go? Absolutely. Does it negatively affect the business? In some ways, yes. Right? Yep. But what you have to do is you have to weigh in and out. Like the way we were talking about some of the stuff was, how do I hand over certain digital marketing? How do I do more physical marketing? How do I hand this out? What you're really looking for are carbon copies of yourself, right? And what you can outsource. The answer really a lot of times on how to hire people, like I said, is you asked me when. When I would hire somebody is when you can stomach losing the volume overall that you would think that you could do it at, right? Number one. Yeah. Number two is how would I do it is a whole different ballgame. So
well, and I think that goes back. An interesting point you brought up there was your passion for marketing. Like you like this stuff, right?
Yeah.
If anybody who's listening to this can't tell, right? So it's something that if you were given some free time, like a magic wand, free time, what would you spend your time on? You would probably spend it on marketing, right?
Getting more business.
Exactly. Right. There's a lot of PTs out there that wouldn't, right? And this is why I think it's important to think, and we would always coach managers when I was running a region for one of these big companies. We would always say, look, you have to learn to delegate at some point. And delegation, you have to understand, is not going to be somebody who does it exactly as well as you think it should be done. Now, the cool thing is they may actually do it better than you, right? There may be some people out there, like for Brian, he might say, okay, there's nobody better at marketing than me because he loves it. But I'm sure there's probably somebody better out there at like managing a schedule, right? Which he maybe doesn't love, that he would be happy to pay them to take that off his plate, right? So he could spend more time on marketing. So these little delegation things that you can do are ways that, you can kind of leverage that, but you have to really keep your passions in mind, right? So I'm thinking, for me, right, I am at a stage where am I turning away business? I'm almost at the point where I'm turning away business, right? But I'm not at a point where it's like, okay, my prices are super high and I'm busy and I have an extra $4,000 a month that I can try some stuff with, right? So I'm at that point where I want to learn a bunch, right? And then once I get to that point that I am having some free cash flow, then my guess is I'll probably end up offloading that to somebody because I'm going to be focusing on other stuff, right? But with what I've learned through failing, in like different marketing, stuff, or succeeding in different marketing stuff, I'm going to have a good eye on that person and a quick trigger, right? So if they're coming out and saying, well, this, and this, so if I'm not saving time, if I'm like really having to focus and teach them how to do their job, absolutely not. And then hopefully once I get to the point that I, have space, location, whatever, then I can take that back in if I have multiple employees generating revenue. And like you said, when I can stomach losing a little bit, or at least like having that switch off change, then I'm going to say, okay, do I keep this person? Right? Where maybe I could do it better. Maybe I could do it more passionately. It'll really come down to like kind of what time do they save me and what return.
Yeah. I mean, here's kind of my response to that, right? What I would say is when you're evaluating your business, you have to evaluate the different bottlenecks that are essentially not allowing you to grow. Yeah. And so I don't think in a lot of ways that marketing being worse is one of the bottlenecks. Like I don't think a bottleneck to business is, oh, I'm marketing so well that I'm getting all these patients, right? So that's why I'm not quick to hand off marketing. I think when we think about the different solutions and problems, what people look at is how do I free up more of my time so I can see more patients? And what I would actually say is the way you do this is you free up more of your time by having people see patients. So in essence, you can go work on the business. When you're working in the business, it's a lot harder to grow the business. When you're working on the business, it's a lot better. So that's why I like working on marketing, because ultimately, like, again, I like patient care just as much as everybody else. But the reality of it is there's a certain amount of working on the business to grow the business that makes a lot of sense for you to do.
But what if you can't hire, right? So this is the issue that, cash PT is hard to hire for because, a lot of people, they'll just say, well, I'll just create my own cash PT. If I'm going to do that, why would I work for somebody and take, 50% of each income if I can just do it myself, right? So I'm anticipating.
It's why starting a cash-based practice can be pretty fucking stupid.
Hey, come on!
Like, here's the thing. For those of you listening, sometimes, like, I'll go the zig and the zag when people are like, "Wow, you take insurance? Why do you do that?" For exactly what Owen just talked about. No. Like the reality is, it's not. It's a much harder business to scale, guys. I don't really know how else to tell people that, right? Like, and again, maybe, and I'm coming off as a little negative to it to a degree. I'm all for entrepreneurship and growing, but I think people think there's a lot of grass is greener on the other side. And I think when I talk to people, the number one reason for why people at PTs want to go to cash-based is because, like, I want more time with my patients. I want more of this. I want more of that. And they don't understand how business works. Yeah, you can get more time, but not with the patients that you want all the time. You're now a slave to can you pay me for my services? So it might not be the perfect patients you want, right?
Yeah.
And again, like
this is a whole other podcast.
It's a whole other podcast. My point being, and I didn't mean to cut Owen off completely on it, but one of the things that Owen's pointing out is the pitfalls of cash physical therapy. Is that to scale the business? Well, how do I just give this stuff off without them stealing it? You're right. You're right. You want to know why? Because you probably did that when you started cash-based practice, right? Let's be real, guys. Like everybody, like you the reason people are worried about that is because they probably did it themselves. And so the reality is, why do I focus on marketing so much? So if someone walked off with part of my business, I know that I can go build it back.
Yeah.
Right. And so to think about that process, when you think about it, I think it's an essential skill to have and an essential thing to never, I don't say never let go, but really be prepared that, like, if somebody did walk away and left a bunch of your clients, like, how would you build it back? I know exactly how I build it back. Right. I know exactly how I would do it. So the reality is, when it comes to this process, you want to just think about those things.
Well, anyway, this, I think that speaks to a greater point when we talk about, like, outsourcing anything, right? What's the skill that if you lost everything, you'd be happiest that you built up? Right. Yeah. You talk about that, paying the ignorance tax, right? Or, building up the one thing that, you can't lose in the stock market is what you've learned. Right. So those are the things where, something catastrophic happens to a business, whatever, you can still, marketing is, it's great to know how to manage a schedule, be a good PT, things like that. But we've all got our PT degrees, so everybody's on that level. But if you're one who can understand marketing, then you're going to be able to say, oh crap, my partner left me and stole all my money, right? I have nothing. Well, yeah, no, but I was the reason why we had all those patients, because I know how to market, right? So that's where I think that outsourcing marketing stuff is important to, again, you want to be good at it enough. And then if you're really pressed for time because of circumstances, right, where it's like, I can't hire somebody, I need to, see this. Okay, whatever. Here's a few months of somebody doing my pay-per-click, right, while I save up some money that I, with more revenue, because I can see more people versus going to like a BNI meeting or, whatever. Then you can kind of parlay that back into like either ad spend for getting another employee, or what I would do is, instead of going the employee route, I just open up a brick and mortar. But
so you're getting at a bigger point, which is like, again, like we're talking about this, like for me, when I think of pay per click and these kind of things, these different campaigns, like me personally, I just feel like being in control of that stuff and the spigot that brings you more clients is so important. I just felt like to me, when it comes to marketing, it's such an important aspect. Now, if someone can do it better than me, someone can do it better than you, that's the time to hire that person, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like, and again, I think to your point about paying the ignorant tax and all that, I think more so is I got to figure out what the bottleneck to my business is. And if it is marketing and it's like your ineffectiveness to do it or something along those lines, like that's when I would look to hand it off personally. But those are the differences with it. I think there's a lot of other bottlenecks that reach business owners much, much, much sooner. And they think, oh, let me hand off something like marketing, which is such a big piece of what we're doing, right?
Yeah, to be fair, PTs don't love doing it. Some do, right? And the entrepreneurial people tend to like it more, but like the average PT hates marketing. So
yeah. Well, I think you gotta here's the thing that we think about, like what marketing is, right? And we were talking about this, and maybe we're gonna do it on a podcast, more of like a case study on one of the guys that we were chatting about earlier, together, Owen and I. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to marketing and growing your business, you also have to look at your business as a whole as to where it's going. If I want it to be a cash-based practice where I don't deal with insurance and it's only me and I'm growing the business on the brand of something like that, the marketing's got to be different, especially moving forward and growing, than if the marketing is, hey, I'm trying to grow this, insurance-based thing or this cash-based in-person thing. The message can't change as you're growing. And if it does, which like say you're like, hey, I've changed my mind, I want to go do something different, like that's fine, but you got to be prepared for that to hurt a little bit, right? Like imagine if Nike just said, hey guys, and again, like I'm going to use Nike as an example because it's a big branding thing. That's a whole nother type of advertising. But say they're like, we're reducing we're advertising dress shoes for people. We'd all be like, what?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't think of them as dress shoes immediately, right?
Yeah.
And so they would probably suffer in sales initially. So the bigger you are, the harder it is to pivot stuff like that. So you just want to make sure that when you're thinking about where your vision is, where you're trying to take your practice, make sure that your marketing message is locked in with what's going on from the get-go. And again, it's easier to change it as you're smaller, but it gets harder and harder as you build and grow. And so that's where I feel like a lot of people get snagged on in these cash-based types of scenarios. But listen, we give this type of feedback to people all the time in Physio Growth, right? We tell people like, and it's like, and sometimes it's constructive feedback, sometimes it's a little harsh, like what I was saying, but I think some of it's the reality of that process. So again, if you're a business owner or looking to be in a business and looking to grow, and or even if you're a physical therapist thinking maybe the grass might be greener if I go to cash-based physical therapy, you want someone to smack you in the head with the truth, let me visit physio-growth.com and we can talk more specifically about all the pros and cons, mentorship, and career advice. Super easy. $99 a month. You can get slapped in the head by me and get the best career advice you're ever going to get.
He hits like a wuss. Everyone's fine. All right. With that, we are out, my friend.
Sounds good, man.
See ya.
See ya.